Welcome to IAS MONK. One method, three victories. Your journey becomes inevitable. Dear friends, I have promised to you that I am going to map each year's, that is, I am talking about UPSC Civil Services main exam. So each year's essay topics with that year's four GS papers questions. So here I am taking up 2014's essay number 1, that is, with greater power comes greater responsibility, with all the relevant questions from the 2014 GS paper 1. Okay, so I have that question paper in my hand. I'll read out that question and I will connect how it is related to the essay topic of 2014. So I am talking just essay number 1 of 2014 essay paper. So this integrated IAS MONK method gives you three benefits at once. What are those three benefits? Essay depth and GS main structure and a short prelims boost for your upcoming prelims exam. So whatever I am going to teach here, it connects ideas across the papers, helping you think like a topper and prepare like a strategist. Okay. Essay, main exam GS1, that syllabus is here. It has Indian heritage and culture, history and geography of the world and society. This is the GS1 of Civil Services main exam. And question is, I have a question paper in my hand. I'll just read out that question. Examine critically the various facets of economic policies of the British in India from mid-18th century till independence. So almost 200 years. Okay, so 200 years you have to write the answer for this question in 150 words and for 10 marks. Okay, let us see how you can connect this. So this GS1 question shows how British economic power was exercised without any responsibility toward Indian society. So their policies caused deindustrialization, famines and structural poverty. So this directly illustrates the essay's core idea, that is, when power is unchecked by responsibility, it becomes exploitation. So British economic policy in India evolved through clear phases, each reflecting how power was used to secure revenue, markets and political control. The early period after Plassey battle, hope you remember the year 1757 June 23. So that is the date of Battle of Plassey, fought between Robert Clive and Siraj-ud-Dowlah. Okay, so the early period after this Plassey was marked by direct plunder and the acquisition of Diwani rights, which shifted company from traders to territorial rulers. These terms are important. You have to remember these terms. From traders to rulers. So mark these words. These terminology is very, very important. So you have to note such words. So keywords, you can say keywords, which I call these as boosters for your prelims. Okay. So as British power consolidated, free trade, imperialism dismantled Indian industries through discriminatory tariffs and forced imports. So British started importing whatever they want. Okay, not what the Indians wanted. So later, railways, plantations, and commercialization of agriculture were introduced not for development, but to integrate India into a colonial supply chain. Across these phases, three pillars you can identify. So they remained constant. What are those? Extractive land revenue system and trade policies that favored British manufacturers and financial mechanisms like home charges that drained Indian wealth. So this structural view helps us understand how economic power was systematically organized, okay, and why its exercise remained detached from any responsibility toward Indian welfare. Okay, that is how you can connect power and responsibility. Fine. So film boost. So I have given here this permanent settlement, all those things will again Cornwallis about all those. You have to note these. They are very very important for your preliminary exam. Okay. To continue with this question mapping. So I have listed here the core thread. Okay. Power leads to responsibility. If you don't handle power responsibly, then it is going to be a big failure. Okay, and I have given micro timeline also. All these are very important for your prelims as well as mains answer writing. And three pillars of British economic policy. So what are the consequences of uh, these British policies? So consequences of British economic policy were felt most sharply in agrarian society, where rigid revenue demands ignored the rhythms of Indian agriculture. So under Cornwallis, the permanent settlement introduced a harsh clause requiring zamindars to deposit revenue before sunset on a fixed date. Though not a separate law, it's not like a sunset law. Okay, this deadline was to it is so unforgiving that the entire system came to be known by the epithets sunset law. Okay, a single missed payment, often due to monsoon failure or market fluctuations or logistic failure, so it could lead to immediate auction of land. So this mechanical enforcement revealed how colonial power operated without empathy or responsibility. Okay, the wider economy suffered through deindustrialization, indebtedness, and recurring famines, exposing the extractive nature of British governance. Indian thinkers like Dadabhai Naoroji, the grand old man of India, and R.C. Dutt analyzed these patterns as a deliberate drain of wealth. So, viewed through the GS paper 1 lens, these outcomes show how economic policy reshaped society and how unchecked power becomes structural injustice. So, this is how we can connect this question to our essay number 1 of 2014. Okay, now let us move on to the second question of this GS1 of 2014. That is, in what ways did the naval mutiny prove to be the last nail in the coffin of British colonial aspirations in India? Naval mutiny means what? That is Royal Indian Navy mutiny of 1946. So that hope you remember. Okay. So the very important question may be asked from this topic for prelims. Okay. Please remember, because RIN mutiny, it is known as last battle or war of independence. Comparing that with first Indian freedom war of India, so the Sepoy mutiny, what the British call it as Sepoy mutiny. So this is last war of India's independence. So many questions can be asked for prelims. So please uh, take a note of this particular question. So this question we are relating this to our essay 1 of 2014. Okay, what is the question? In what ways did the naval mutiny prove to be the last nail in the coffin of British colonial aspirations in India? Okay, the Royal Indian Mutiny of 1946 was a dramatic reminder that colonial authority collapses when it loses moral legitimacy. Okay, the revolt began on HMIS Talwar in Bombay, Colaba, now it is called Mumbai, where ratings had long suffered racial discrimination. Ratings means what? All enlisted sailors or soldiers. So this HMIS Talwar, it is actually a ship, a signal training ship during World War One and all that. So this, what is that HMIS? HMIS means the long form is H is His Majesties. That time king was ruling in Britain. His Majesty's IS, I is Indian ship. So HMIS. So His Majesty's Indian ship Talwar, Talwar its name. It is actually training school anchored at the shore of Colaba, Mumbai or Bombay that time. That is actually training school and it has one commander also. So the mutiny started there. See how the events unfold. So the revolt began on this HMIS Talwar in Bombay, where these sailors or trainees and soldiers, they had long suffered racial discrimination, poor food, and wartime neglect under the command of Arthur Frederick King. He was the commander of this HMIS Talwar. There were so many British officers which were exploiting these soldiers. So particularly HMIS Talwar's commander was Arthur Frederick King. His name itself is King. Okay, a symbolic spark came earlier when BC Dutt wrote Quit India. So he wrote Quit India. Where he wrote? He wrote this on the walls of that HMIS Talwar ship on 1st December 1945. So he was arrested. So that was the triggering point for this mutiny. So when the mutiny finally erupted on 18th February 1946, it spread rapidly to over 70 ships and shore establishments. Okay. So remarkably, this mutiny had no single leader. It spread spontaneously. Okay. But these all these sailors, they organized themselves through the Naval Central Strike Committee. So it is NCSC. So they organized this mutiny under this committee, and the president of this committee was MS Khan. So Hindu and Muslim sailors jointly hoisted the tricolor, signaling that the British no longer commanded royalty even within the armed forces. The funny thing or strange thing, of course, it was quite natural. No political leader at that time supported this mutiny except the Congress leader Aruna Asaf Ali. She emerged as the only Congress leader to openly support this mutiny, while Sardar Patel, he intervened to prevent bloodshed and ensure a peaceful resolution, recognizing that a full-scale revolt could derail the transfer of power. So that was the time when British were thinking to transfer power to Indians. So Sardar Patel did not risk that. So that is why he intervened and he consoled all the sailors and soldiers to stop the mutiny. So many later described this uprising as the last war of independence because it exposed the final erosion of British authority. So for the colonial government, the message was unmistakable. When even disciplined servicemen reject power, its moral foundation has collapsed. So this was the message. So this is why the mutiny is remembered as the symbolic last nail in the coffin of British colonial aspirations. Okay, so reinforcing the essays inside that power endures only when anchored in responsibility. So this is how we can connect this question to essay, and you can extract so many important points for your prelims also. So that is why I have marked here all prelims boosters. So questions, surely questions will come from this section for your upcoming prelims exam. So hope you can you have understood the importance of these mapping. Okay, so you have to look into the mains questions also, because that is a very important source for preliminary questions. Many old previous year question papers, mains question papers, the prelims questions have come from those papers. Okay, that's why it is very important to give importance for all PYQs of main exam. Fine then, that is why I am telling you it is one method and three victories. Okay, fine then. Next question. Again, this is question number 8 in the question paper. GS1 main exam. What were the major political, economic, and social developments in the world which motivated the anti-colonial struggle in India? Okay. So again, we can connect this to our essay 1. See, global developments during those time, all what are those world wars, rise of nationalism, economic crisis, all these exposed the irresponsibility of colonial powers, that is British powers. This inspired India's anti-colonial struggle. Okay, the essay theme. Okay, we should not forget we are anchoring on our essay 1. With greater power comes greater responsibility. Okay, so this inspired India's anti-colonial struggle, the global developments. The essay theme is reflected here. So power must align with justice and responsibility. That is the essay theme. So India's anti-colonial struggle did not evolve in isolation. Okay, that you know. So it was shaped by major global developments that exposed the irresponsibility of imperial power. The first and the second world wars weakened European empires economically and militarily, creating space for colonial subjects to assert their rights. The rise of nationalism across Asia and Africa, inspired by leaders like Sun Yat-sen and movements such as Turkish Revolution, showed that foreign rule could be challenged. It is not invincible. Okay, so Woodrow Wilson's principles of self-determination though selectively applied, ignited global debates on political freedom. The Great Depression revealed the fragility of colonial economic structures and intensified demands for economic justice. The success of socialist and anti-imperialist ideas worldwide further delegitimated colonial exploitations. So these global shifts strengthened India's resolve, giving moral and political legitimacy to its struggle. The GS1 question here reflects the essay's core insight, that is, when global power realigns responsibly and responsibility demands resistance to injustice, and India's freedom movement became part of this wider ethical transformation. Okay. In question, I am reading it out from question paper. What were the events that led to Suez Crisis in 1956? How did it deal a final blow to Britain's self-image as a world power? So, this question again relates to the core concept of our essay number 1 of 2014. So, this Suez Crisis exposed Britain's irresponsible geopolitical ambitions. When power is exercised without realism and responsibility, it leads to humiliation and decline. Thus, the Suez Crisis of 1956 revealed how irresponsible geopolitical power collapses when it ignores changing global realities. So the crisis began when Egypt's President Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, a vital maritime route linking Europe to Asia. So Britain, still clinging to its imperial self-image, secretly coordinated with France and Israel to launch a military intervention. So, but this overreach misjudged the new post-war power balance. Okay, the United States and the Soviet Union both opposed the invasion, forcing Britain into a humiliating withdrawal. Okay, this was the event that was taking place during that time. The episode exposed Britain's inability to act independently in a bipolar world and dealt a final blow to its self image as a global power. The Suez Canal's strategic importance mirrors today's Strait of Hormuz. You know what is happening during Iran US Israel war right now. So it is a narrow choke point where global trade, energy routes, and geopolitical tensions converge. So the questions are expected for upcoming preliminary exam on this topic. So just as Suez shaped 20th century power politics, Hormuz shapes contemporary strategic calculations. The GS1 question, this particular question, reinforces essay's insight, that is, when power is exercised without responsibility or realism, it leads to humiliation, decline, and the erosion of legitimacy. Okay, so look into these prelims boosters. Okay, all these Suez Canal, Hormuz Strait, their geographical locations, word map, these are all very, very important for prelims. Next question, question number 10 in this GS paper 1. The new economic policy 1921 of Lenin had influenced the policies adopted by India soon after independence. That's what the evaluate. We have to evaluate this. All these are for 10 marks. All the questions what we have looked so far, and the word limit is 150. So how can we connect this question to our essay topic 1 of 2014? Okay. So Lenin's NEP, that is New Economic Policy, it balanced state power with economic flexibility. India adopted similar responsible economic policies after independence. So this GS1 question aligns with essay's idea that power must be exercised with social responsibility. So Lenin's new economic policy of 1921 was a strategic retreat from rigid state control to a mixed model, that is state commanding heights while allowing market incentives for agriculture, small industries and trade. So it balanced state power with economic responsibility towards citizens' survival after war and famine. Okay. So independent India faced similar constraints. Those are food shortages, weak industry, and the need for rapid reconstruction. So the leadership, especially Nehru, Mahalanobis, and PC Joshi, these leaders, so they saw NEP of Lenin as proof that ideological purity must not override people's welfare. Thus, India adopted a mixed economy with public sector controlling heavy industries, banking, transport, and private sector encouraged in consumer goods, agriculture supported through rice incentives, cooperatives, and community development. Planning used as a responsible tool to direct national resources. So all that you have to mention in your answer. So this GS question, its core. What is the core of this question? India borrowed NEP's spirit, not its communist ideology. That you have to remember. Okay, because India is not a purely communist country. So the idea that economic power must be exercised with social responsibility, aligning perfectly with the essay theme. Okay, see how beautifully we can connect essay topic to GS main papers questions. Okay, Then I have continuing with the same question. I have outlined here micro timeline. Okay, you can pause the video and look into this micro timeline. You can note down from these slides. So all important points I have listed here. So from Lenin's NEP to India's mixed economy, the timeline shows one truth. What is that truth? Economic power becomes meaningful only when exercised with flexibility, realism, and responsibility towards society. Society means all people. So NEP and India's mixed economy show a shared principle, that is, when the state wields power, responsible flexibility becomes the engine of national development. So NEP of Lenin and India's early planning reveal a core economic truth, that is, efficiency and equity emerge only when state power is balanced with market incentives. When nations face shifting global power, economic models become strategic tools. NEP of Lenin and India's mixed economy both show how responsible flexibility safeguards national autonomy. History reminds us that true economic power is not domination but the wisdom to adapt for the welfare of the many. In every era, whether viewed through ethics, governance, geopolitics, or economic theory, the lesson remains constant, that is, power endures only when guided by responsible flexibility. Again, we are leading to our essay topic. So, this is how we can keep connecting GS paper questions to essay topics. So, preparing for essay is as good as preparing for all the mains papers. So, that is why I told you in my first episode of this series. So, preparing for essay, that is for 250 marks, it is preparing for the entire main exam. So all 1250 plus 500 marks are in your essay pocket. Fine. Now we'll move on to the next question. Question number 11 in this question paper, GS1 of 2014. I read out this question. How does patriarchy impact the position of a middle class working woman in India? Okay. Patriarchy is what is patriarchy? So it is a social power structure that often lacks responsibility toward women's dignity and equality. This GS1 question, GS paper 1 question, that's what I meant, directly reflects the essay's theme, that is, power must be exercised with responsibility. Patriarchy in India operates as a deep social power structure that shapes norms, expectations, and opportunities. For a middle class working woman, this power often functions without corresponding responsibility. Okay, so toward equality, dignity, or shared domestic labor. Even as education and employment expand her public role, patriarchal norms continue to assign her the primary responsibility for caregiving, household work, and emotional labor. Workplaces mirror these biases through gaps, glass ceilings, and limited leadership pathways. At home, the double burden reduces her mobility, leisure and then career progression. Social expectations around marriage, safety, and respectability further restrict autonomy of women. So this GS1 question directly reflects the essay theme, that is, when social power is concentrated without responsibility, it produces structural inequality. True empowerment requires redistributing both power and responsibility within families, workplaces, and society. So look into this Prelims Booster, gender division of labor, double burden, glass ceiling, time use survey. So all these things, SHG Act, then Maternity Benefit Act, all those things. Please look into those things for your prelims preparation. Again here timeline, micro timeline. So for patriarchy and middle class working women in India, what happened in 1950s, 60s, from there to till 2020s. So please go through this timeline, which will give you more clear idea about this topic. Okay. Next question. Why do some of the most prosperous regions of India have an adverse sex ratio for women? Give your arguments. Okay. Again, this is also for 10 marks and 150 words. So, some of India's most prosperous regions, Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, parts of Gujarat and Maharashtra, they show an adverse sex ratio because economic power has not translated into ethical responsibility. Rising income strengthened son preference as families sought to preserve property, lineage, and social status through male heirs. Prosperity also enabled the misuse of prenatal diagnostic technology, turning economic power into a tool for gender discrimination. Social norms around dowry, inheritance. So, in India's richest regions, the prosperity without ethical responsibility turned technology into a tool of bias, proving that economic power alone cannot guarantee gender justice. When wealth grows but values do not, power drifts away from responsibility and society's progress becomes uneven and incomplete. So I have given micro timeline. Moving on to next question. This again question number 13 from GS paper 1, mains paper 2014. What is the question? The life cycle of a joint family depends on economic factors rather than social values. Discuss. So the life cycle of a joint family in India is shaped far more by economic forces than by cultural ideals. While social values emphasize unity, duty, and shared responsibility, the actual formation, expansion, fragmentation, or dissolution of joint families depends on income levels, occupation patterns, land holding size, and migration. So, agrarian economies historically supposed joint families because land was the primary asset. Okay, so labor was pooled and economic security came from staying together. With industrialization, urbanization, and salaried employment, the economic logic shifted. Mobility increased, costs rose, and nuclear families became more viable. Thus, economic power determines who holds authority, how responsibilities are shared, and when families split or consolidate, all these are counted. So this GS1 question aligns with the essay theme. The power, that is economic or social, shapes responsibility within institutions. And when power shifts, family structures evolve accordingly. So to continue with the same question, I have again listed here micro timeline, that is economic factors shaping joint families from 1950, pre-1950s to 2020s. Okay, go through all these points. Next question, we'll take up next question, that is question number 14 of GS paper 1 main exam 2014. That is discuss the various economic and social cultural forces that are driving increasing feminization of agriculture in India. Again 10 marks, 150 words. So, women are gaining agricultural responsibility due to male migration, but without matching institutional support. See the imbalance here. So this imbalance reflects the essay's theme, that is power must be accompanied by responsibility. So the feminization of agriculture in India is driven by a combination of economic compulsions and socio-cultural shifts. Large-scale male migration to cities and non-farm sectors has left women as the primary cultivators, laborers, and decision makers in rural agriculture. Yet, this growing economic responsibility is not matched by institutional support, land rights, credit access, or recognition. So, socio cultural norms assign women the responsibility of sustaining households and farms even as they face limited control over assets and income. Mechanization, climate stress, and declining farm profitability push men out of agriculture, while women remain tied to it due to social expectations. So, thus, women gain responsibility without corresponding power. See the imbalance. So, a direct reflection of the essay theme. Economic power must be accompanied by institutional responsibility. Otherwise, it becomes a burden rather than empowerment. So, this is how we can connect essay topic with GS questions. Again, continuing with the same question, I have listed here micro timeline about feminization of agriculture in India. What was the condition during 1970, 70s and 80s till 2020s? You just go through these. This will help you for your prelims preparation as well as future upcoming mains exam also. So next question of GS1 is how do the Indian debates on secularism differ from debates in the West? So Indian secularism requires state to exercise power responsibly by maintaining principled distance. Okay, state cannot say you have to practice this religion or that religion like that. So Indian state it distances away from this. This GS1 question aligns with the essay's core idea, that is power must be used without sensitivity and with sensitivity and responsibility. Okay, so Indian debates on secularism differ from Western debates because the historical experiences, social diversity, and role of the state, these are the fundamental differences. Western secularism emerged from conflicts between church and state, leading to a model of a strict separation. The state withdraws from religion to protect individual freedom. But in India, the challenge was not one dominant church, but multiple religious coexisting. Okay, so Indian secularism therefore evolved as principled distance. The state may intervene to ensure equality, reform discriminatory practices, and maintain harmony. It is not separation but balanced engagement in case of Indian state. Thus, Indian secularism demands responsible use of state power, neutrality without indifference, intervention without favorism. So this JS1 question aligns with the essay theme, that is power must be exercised with sensitivity and responsibility, especially in diverse society. Before that, how I given a micro timeline, that is evolution of secular debates, India versus West. So just go through this. So French Revolution, and then how constitutional developments, all those things. After that, I have given here visual contrast between India and West, how the secularism of the two differ, and also I have given 10-point comparison. Please go through all these. You will get quite wonderful information. That concludes the mapping. We have mapped 10 questions of 2014 Civil Services Main Exam GS1 paper with 2014 main exams essay papers, one topic, essay 1, that is all that we have done, and you please go through again all those things. This will give you a lot of facts, information for your prelims, upcoming prelims. So thank you for being part of this journey, learning journey. If you found value in this integrated approach to essay, GS and prelims, please subscribe to my channel and continue your disciplined preparation with us. Okay, see you very soon in my next episode. I come up with again same essay number 1, and I am mapping the questions of main exams GS paper 2. Okay, thank you very much.